Welcome to Voices of Esalen. I'm Sam Stern. Today, my guest is psychiatrist and author Dr. Jacob Towery, who offers a radically honest conversation about shame, vulnerability, and flirtation, and how we can train ourselves to connect with others more freely and more authentically. Jacob's work and his writing has been featured in the Washington Post, in the New York Times, and in Psychology Today. And what I really loved about this interview is that Jacob didn't just talk theory. He actually engaged in some live flirtation exercises with two Esalen staff members, Lea and Wuya Xu. And the result was just a surprising, hilarious, disarming exploration of what it might look like to be skillfully vulnerable. So if you're looking to show up more fully in your life and have more fun, expand your definition of yourself, I think this episode just might give you some practical tools to do so. So with no further ado, here's my conversation with Jacob Towery.
So you're going to be teaching a course in September at Esalen called Finding Humans Less Scary. And I want to read part of the description here. Do you struggle with shyness or social anxiety? Do you feel intimidated or scared to meet new people or worry others will judge you? In this workshop, you'll learn how to enjoy meeting new people, interact more successfully with others, and instead of feeling drained after social interactions, you can come away feeling invigorated and refreshed. You'll learn ways to become more skillfully vulnerable, authentic, and playful with others. Sounds like good stuff. I feel like I could gain a lot from that. How did you come to this work? Was there a moment in your life when you realized you needed to confront shame or fear in order to rise to your potential?
You know, I've been very fortunate, probably mostly due to good parents, that shame was really just never a part of my life. But I was also fortunate when I came to Stanford for residency, there was this guy named David Burns, who's an emeritus professor of psychiatry at Stanford. Incredible teacher, and he started teaching me this model of cognitive behavioral therapy, and a lot of it was experiential exercises to help people get over various things, including social anxiety and shyness. And we would actually do the exercises ourselves, and I was like, wow, it's amazing how much potential we have to care less what other people think of us, to be more open, to be more friendly and warm, to have conversations with just about any person on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I found that really fun and exciting personally. And it was also fun to then bring that into my work with patients. And
what do those exercises look like?
So tomorrow night, we're going to do something called shame attacking exercises, which Albert Ellis developed in the 1920s and 1930s. He was this really quirky character in New York. And he wanted to develop things that would help people have less shame and be able to care less what other people think of them. I think a common thing for people with social anxiety, but also a lot of people even without social anxiety, is people can spend a lot of time and energy worrying, are other people judging me? Are other people looking down on me? And it can create a lot of self-consciousness, which causes suffering. So he created these things that he called shame attacking exercises. So one of the things he would do is he would take a banana and he would tie a string to the banana, and then he would walk it down the street as if the banana was his pet on a leash, and then he'd pick up the banana and stroke the banana, talk to the banana like it was his pet. Wow. And people probably thought he was super weird. Or he would just announce the time on the street corners very loudly. He'd be like, it's 2:43 p.m. And people thought he was totally nuts, but he learned to just not care as much what other people thought. And intellectually, I think a lot of us get that. We're like, yes, it's good to not care as much what other people think. But to actually on a gut level get that and to really not care takes a lot of practice. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing shame attacking exercises with people since 2007 when I met David. And it's really fun to just go out in the world and be silly and be ridiculous.
What are you going to make people do on Wednesday night?
I don't even know. I actually haven't planned it. I think I'm going to be spontaneous, but some classic things that I've done with other people, and some of these are easier to do out in a downtown city than they are here. So we'll probably just have to improvise. But sometimes we'd go to CVS or something and get a plastic bag and walk around with plastic bag hats. I've many times walked down the street with people and we've made loud animal noises. I don't know if you know the Ministry of Silly Walking.
No, I'm not aware of the Ministry of Silly Walking.
The Ministry of Silly Walking, this was a skit from the Monty Python folks. I think they had a show called 8 Ball. and people had to get a permit for their silly walk.
Oh.
So people would come in and demonstrate their silly walk to the Ministry of Silly Walking. So I'll often, me and my patients will be walking down the streets of Palo Alto doing absolutely ridiculous walks. And sometimes we'll throw in like some chicken arms and often my patients come up with more creative walks than I could come up with. So just really silly things. We'll skip down the street. We'll have spontaneous fireball fights, like out of Street Fighter 2. We'll throw fireballs at each other. Sometimes we'll sit and do really loud meditating, the way no one actually meditates. So we'll just like sit together on the sidewalk and go like, oh. We'll do jumping jacks a lot on the street. Lots of groin stretches.
I read that you are the winner of the 2022 Shame Attacking World Championships.
Yeah, that was a hard-earned title. I'm proud to say, the reigning world champion of shame attacking exercises. I have this onesie that looks like the galaxy on it. It's kind of a psychedelic onesie. And I was visiting my parents, and my girlfriend and my son were there. And I said, this area where we're sitting for lunch, this would be a great spot for some shame attacking. So I went in the bathroom and got a bunch of toilet paper, and I then walked out, and then my son generously filmed it. And then I walked out the bathroom with a kind of a tail of toilet paper sticking out of my shoe, as if I'd just gotten stuck there. And then in this theater square with maybe a few dozen strangers, I think I demonstrated my incredible juggling prowess with one ball. So I'm probably one of the best one ball jugglers in the world. I would sometimes throw the ball in the air and catch it with the same hand. I think I might have made up a poem that was horrible.
Was there an actual competition, or did you just
there's an actual
self-appointed?
Competition. Yeah, no.
Okay.
There's an actual competition. We would make videos and send them in. And I'd been the silver medalist the year before, and I was kind of sad and disappointed that I didn't win the gold medal. I was probably overly pouty, but I was determined to do better. So then I sent in a different entry and got the gold that year.
I feel like you've kind of like discovered a hack or something for human functioning, because
Yes.
you're a Stanford educated clinician, and you're an author, you have articles in the New York Times, etc. So you've worked to build that persona that so many people are actively sort of like constructing, but at the same time you're willing to, I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, I like to undercut my bio. I think that for me personally, my ego is probably my greatest enemy. Yeah. So I want to, as frequently as possible, be conscious that my ego is capable of taking over and reasserting itself, and that tends to screw me and the people around me in my life. So anything I can do to kill the ego, I think, is good. And shame attacking exercises where you go out and people are literally laughing at you and judging you and thinking you're so weird are fantastic for killing the ego.
Yeah, the consistency of the self as a construct.
Yeah, I am absolutely fascinated by the concept of the self. I'm currently listening to this audiobook by Chris Niebauer called No Self, No Problem. I'm really enjoying it, and I think the Buddhists have been onto this for 2,500 years, that the self is really an illusion. The way that we think of the self is an illusion. And it gets us into so much trouble because we think, well, I better impress people, and I better have people think I'm smart and competent and amazing and eternally selfless and sacrificing and kind and all this bullshit that none of us actually are or are constantly. When you let go of the self and you're like, oh, and language makes it very hard to get rid of the self, but there's a body, there's cells, there's a brain, but you are not a certain way, and I am not a certain way. We might have tendencies. We might tend to act a certain way or be a certain way, but it's all much more moldable and malleable than I think we tend to think of it.
Yeah, I think what's ironic too is that we tend to cleave toward this consistency of character because we think people will be outraged or shocked if they see something new coming from us, even though that might be playfulness, humor. I don't know. I feel like I have that. I have established a relationship with certain people that have been based on their understanding that I'm going to be, I don't know, kind of unexpressive or something. So I worry what would happen if I show a playfulness of character. So another piece of your work is rejection training. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, again, I learned it from David Burns. I don't think it would have ever occurred to me on my own. So rejection training is where you go out and you on purpose get rejected. And if you're thinking of doing this at home, you can, but please just know it's much harder to do this on your own, at least at first, than it is with the support of like a trained team CBT therapist. Or you can come, if you don't have that, I've been doing this pro bono workshop, Finding Humans Less Scary, in Palo Alto each year. We're probably going to do another one next spring. So you could, come to that and get more practice. But basically you just go out and get rejected in any way. So you can walk up to people and say, could I have this microphone? If they're walking around with a microphone, which is rare. Could I have your hat? Or I love those boots. Could I have them? Or would you give them to me? Mm-hmm. Or could I have your bike? Would you like to give me your car? How would you feel about giving me your cell phone? If you're feeling really adventurous, you can say, hey, you look attractive. Could I have your phone number? Or just, could I have your phone number? Or could I take you out for dinner? Or would you like to marry me?
So in some exercises, there could be real stakes attached to the request.
Well, I don't see real stakes attached to any of those, right? If you're attracted to someone and you ask for the phone number and they say no, they're probably not the only person of that gender on the planet. Unless we've had the zombies have taken over. And then even then, there's probably at least 5 or 6 other people.
When you started doing this work, just doing it as a person who's attempting to take part in rejection training, were there any exercises that you found terrifying?
I don't really like getting arrested or having the fear of getting arrested. So I remember we were in the Stanford shopping center and we started doing stuff and the security came over and I was like, oh man, if this leads to a citation or arrest, that'd be kind of a damper on the mood. Mm-hmm. But thankfully someone in our group kind of talked the person out of it and explained we were a bunch of shrinks. And so nobody got arrested. That was a little scary. I think I used to be more scared of asking people out when I found them attractive. That used to get my heart rate going a lot higher, particularly when I was younger. But now I've just done it so many hundreds or thousands of times, it doesn't get me that scared. I think I could probably walk up to like Taylor Swift, who I find gorgeous, and ask her out, and she would, at least 30% chance say no. And no, just kidding. And I, feel tiny bit rejected, but I think I wouldn't feel insanely nervous.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings me to the next piece of your work, which is flirtation training. So, let's talk about that. So often flirtation can be seen as manipulative, or it can definitely feel like high stakes. How do you reframe flirtation as something that's fun and connective?
Yeah, so I think the word manipulative has a lot of baggage. So I have a take on the word manipulative. So, and I want to give credit where credit's due. Marsha Linehan is a brilliant therapist. She invented dialectical behavior therapy for people with borderline personality disorder. She's utterly brilliant. She said, this word manipulative, we're all manipulating each other all the time, right? When we walk up to someone and we smile at them and we're friendly, we're manipulating them. When we call customer service and we say, hi, how are you? I want to, tell you about this product that's not working. We're being manipulative. We're all trying to influence each other all the time. And that's just part of being an animal, right? We are animals. We are primates. We're all trying to influence each other all the time. So, I want to have a good relationship with you. I like you. You seem cool. I hope we'll get along and maybe even hang out sometime in the future beyond this. So I'm deliberately not going to slap you in the face or insult you. That would not serve my interests or the interests of our relationship. So does that mean I'm manipulating you because I'm being kind and being friendly? I guess so, but we're all manipulating each other all the time. So I think trying to influence people is very natural. Where I do have judgment is when there's deception involved. So I think most of us, including me, don't like being lied to. So if you're lying to someone to achieve your ends, that form of manipulation I'm against. I don't like that. But I think to try to influence people in order to get your own needs and wants met is something we're all doing all the time.
Yeah.
So that's my take on the word manipulative. So can flirtation be a means to an end of connecting with someone or getting them attracted to you? Sure, but that's how we are as people. We want people to like us, or we want people to feel connected to us.
Well, I want to see this in action. So I have arranged for 2 Esalen people to take part in some fun flirtation exercises. Would you be open to that?
I would be super open to that. So Sam, thanks for having us. I'm here with Wuya. Wuya and I go way back. It's been at least 4, maybe even 4.5 minutes at this point. And Wuya has bravely volunteered to be my flirting victim. I think we can start with, what does flirting mean? Because I think a lot of things in life come down to language. So I'm going to use flirting in 2 different ways. So when we think of flirting, one way we could think of it is in a more narrow, perhaps sexualized way, right? So we could flirt with someone in order to seduce them. There's kind of an overt goal or an endpoint. And that's one way of flirting. And that's cool. That's good. I'm also going to talk about flirting in a more broad way. And when I do the workshop here in September, Finding Humans Less Scary, I'm going to encourage people to flirt in a very broad way. And what I mean by that is flirting as a form of playfulness, flirting as a way of having fun and connecting with other people without necessarily having any sort of sexual intent or sexual content. And in that way, you really can flirt with anybody. You can flirt with older people. You can flirt with babies. You can flirt with people of any age. Babies are actually great flirts. I don't know how much time you guys have spent with babies or little kids, but they're often really great flirts. They'll kind of look away a little, and they're playful, and they'll kind of run up and grab you and be excited to show you things. But you really can flirt with anybody. And I think there's 2 advantages at least 2 advantages to practicing flirting in a more broad way with practically everybody. One is, if you are attracted to someone and they see you as someone who's generally flirty with everybody, they won't know if you're specifically flirting with them because you're very attracted to them, or if it's just a more general pattern in how you're being, which gives you an advantage. If you're interested in them, then you don't come off as overeager. And they kind of wonder, is he flirting with me because he's into me? Is he flirting with me because that's just how he is with everybody? There's some uncertainty, there's some mystery there. But also, flirting is just fun. I think flirting is a fun way of being in the world. I would say I'm generally pretty flirty, and I enjoy using humor and being playful with people, and I think it just makes life more lively and fun. So I'm really just going to make this up. This is going to be kind of impromptu, and this might be absolutely horrible. I have no idea, and we'll talk actually later in the podcast as to another reason this might be horrible. So the lower you keep your expectations, the less likely everyone is to be disappointed. So Wuya, would you enjoy a compliment?
Yeah, sure.
I think your hair is really cool.
Oh, thank you. I think your coat is really cool. You look like a fox.
Thank you. Wuya, why do you want to get more practice with flirting? What made you volunteer to do this?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad that you brought up the more expanded definition of flirting. And it's just all about being playful, and that speaks to me a lot, because I feel when I think of flirting, it's just so high pressure. It's about like sexual attraction and seduction, but I really just want to have more fun in my life. I always I feel like I'm in a contracted state most of the time, and there's this part of me that really wants to play, but I'm afraid to let it out, and I lack pretext to do it. So I don't know. I guess that's why I'm here to kind of blow away all of that block. Sometimes I can sense a little bit of that wanting to come out, but then there's always like something that just holds me back. I can't say that. If I say that, I'm gonna look like an idiot, or like it's too surprising. I feel like I'm breaking my character.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know what it is about that. Like, I have this way of being around people at cabins, for example, and then I'll all of a sudden have an inspiration to act a certain way, but I'm just too afraid to break character.
Yeah, that makes sense. You might have gotten fooled into thinking you have a self, and there's a self that's supposed to be a certain way, and like there's one way of being.
Yeah,
which is all an illusion. I don't think we don't even have a self at all, but if we did, it wouldn't have to be like one way of being. So I'm excited the idea of thinking of you playing around with that and like, could I bring out some of my sillier side and my funnier side? So particularly when I was in high school, I was really into girls, and most of them were not really into me, like the vast, vast majority, which was painful. And I really tried and just failed miserably with so many people. So, and then in college, I also failed miserably with many girls I was into. And it really wasn't until kind of later in life that I met David Burns, who became one of my greatest mentors at Stanford. And I had to read about flirting and go to workshops and kind of, that's kind of how my brain learned it. But I had a long period where I think I was willing to talk to people, but I just didn't really know what I was doing. So it's kind of a later in life skill that I've cultivated this a bit.
How do you get over the fear, of getting into playfulness when it might not be received well? How do you get over the fear and get into flirting?
Well, for one, and here's shameless self-promotion, I'm teaching a workshop here at Esalen, September 8th to the 12th, called Finding Humans Less Scary, with my friend Michael Luo, and we're going to do a lot of rejection training. Rejection training is a wonderful way of getting desensitized to rejection. So this is something I also learned from David. It's part of Team CBT, this model of therapy that I do. You go out and you on purpose get rejected over and over and over. So I've now been rejected thousands of times. And you can ask for anything. You could ask someone if you could have their glasses. You could ask them. You could say, "I love your hat. Could I have your hat?" You could ask for a burger refill after you had a hamburger at a restaurant. You could walk up to someone and ask for their phone number. I've walked up to people and asked if I could marry them. You could ask for anything. You can ask if you can have their car, their cell phone. I've walked into the Apple store many times and said, "I really like that laptop. Could I have that?" So you can really just ask for anything. And the more you do that and the more you get rejected, the more you realize it doesn't matter if you get rejected. So it's really just an illusion. Oh, if we ask someone for something and they reject us, something horrible will happen. But nothing horrible happens. The worst case scenario is your feelings get hurt and you feel rejected or sad, and that's transient. It will go away. And the more you learn how to be skillful with flirting with people and asking them out, one, the less often you get rejected. It will still happen, but it will happen less. But you also just won't care as much when you do. And a lot of people actually like being flirted with, and they like being admired. So, for example, I remember, I'm not single now, but back when I was single, I remember there were multiple women where I asked for their phone number, and they said, "Oh, I'm really flattered. I'm actually married. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving out my phone number, but I'm so, excited that you asked me," or it's so nice to be desired, essentially. So I think it's just an idea. This person would be upset with me if I were to show interest or ask them out. But I think if it's done respectfully and it's done thoughtfully, people often like being admired. So I'll speak for myself. Even though I'm in a monogamous relationship, when people show interest in me, I really like it. I find it flattering. I think it's fun. I think it's sexy. So even if I'm not going to do anything with that, I think most of us like the idea of feeling admired and desired. So we can give that gift to someone, particularly if done in a thoughtful way. What do you guys think?
It's giving a gift to someone. I like that reframing. And I was also thinking that it can be actually good for the other person in the way that it helps them to practice saying no, right?
Yes.
I think that's really important. I know a lot of people in my life, including myself, have a hard time rejecting or saying no. So, yeah, it's good practice.
So I'll on purpose make this maybe a little more towards the sexual realm, just to demonstrate it. And I want to give credit to Allie Ash. Allie Ash is a really wonderful educator in the realm of sex education and flirting. And I recently watched this course she did called Sleaze-Free Seduction, How to Get Freaky Without Being Creepy. It's really good. I recommend it for people. And she and I are both really into consent. So let's pretend Wuya and I had been out on a date, right? And we'd had a good date. It was juicy. It was fun. It seemed like it was going well. Maybe what I might do is combine some nonverbal flirting with some verbal flirting and some consent. I might kind of, and this is half out of Allie's playbook, I might kind of look at Wuya's lips, which is even harder because there's a mask on, but I can like imagine where the lips are. Maybe a little above his eyes, like above his eyebrow. Oh no, they're lower. Okay, no, he just showed me his lips. They're actually below his nose, which is cool. So I might kind of look at Wuya's lips and then maybe look at Wuya's eyes and kind of vacillate between those. And then I might like bite my lip a little bit. There's some nervous laughter on Wuya's part. He's like, how far is this gonna go? And then I might, maybe I kind of tap my lips a little bit and say, Wuya, I was thinking about kissing you. What would you think about that?
That sounds, what's the word? Appetizing.
Yeah. So if I'm getting, some promising indications, I might say something like, why don't we make that happen? Or let's go for it. Something, and then I might kind of go in for a kiss, right? So I'm being consensual, but in a sexy, fun way. I think consent often gets a bad rap, and particularly among my young men, they think, oh, well, if I ask consent, it's going to spoil the mood or it's going to ruin things. It really doesn't have to. So I think it's way more important to be consensual than not be consensual, but it's even better when you can add in some fun and playfulness to it, and then everybody wins.
And then what happens if Wuya is sort of like, no? What do you do to keep the mood kind of positive and light, even in the face of some sort of rejection?
Yeah, great. I would start with making it a good experience for Wuya, because I want to reinforce people saying no and getting, like Wuya was alluding to, getting that practice, saying no and feeling good about it. So I might say like, no problem. Thanks for taking care of yourself. And then I might just kind of go back to like something we were talking about shortly before. Like maybe I might say like, that jacket looks so warm and comfy. What's the story there? Or, maybe I'd say like, what's the most wild thing you've ever done while wearing that jacket? Right? So I just I make it a good experience. Like, no problem. I wouldn't pressure him. I wouldn't say, why not? I wouldn't make him kind of explain or justify or rationalize his no, but we can still stay in connection and kind of take it somewhere else and see where it goes and still enjoy the flirting.
Yeah, maybe just to reflect back a little bit of what I learned. So the last thing that was really valuable for me is make the experience better for the other person, regardless of rejection or, success. And I think I'll just process it on my own.
Yeah. One final thing I'll say while you're here, because you mentioned a nervousness to break out of character or something. Consistently, when they ask people, what are you looking for in a partner? People put humor really high up. People love having a partner who's funny, who makes them laugh. So practicing using humor, people generally like it. And at first it might feel edgy, like, oh, am I going to say something that's going to offend someone? Am I going to say something that upsets someone? But over time you can calibrate it and you can kind of practice, like, where am I kind of close to the line but not stepping over the line? How edgy can I be where I have fun with it and it's playful, but people generally seem to like it? And then you're kind of bringing a gift to the world by bringing in more humor, and I think most of us like humor.
And even if I make things a little awkward, I can just say, oh, that was a failed attempt.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Come on in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for doing
Thank
this.
you, Wuya. This was so cool.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Sam.
For you to come and to get to know you a little bit better.
Yes, thank you, Sam.
Great to meet you.
Hi, Liz.
Hello.
Okay, come on in.
Would you like a wave or a hug?
Okay. Sure.
This is Jacob. Liz will be our second designated flirter.
So are you going to be like you're just going to be like prompting different things and talking about it? Like there's nothing.
I don't even know. We're just kind of riffing. We're kind
All
of
right.
making it up. So
Here
I thought
we
it
go.
might be some combination of explicit flirting and kind of talking about flirting and some mix.
Okay.
Super quick, would you mind just explaining why it appealed to you enough to do this? You know, when I asked you to do it, why you were open to do it?
Yeah. I sort of went into a cave there in Santa Fe living on the side of a mountain and cut out. I needed to address some things within myself that I was getting kind of panic attacks and different things. And I just cut that part out of my life. Any sort of texting, flirting, any little hits that I was getting of from that, and in addition to that, alcohol and caffeine.
Wow.
But that was one of the things that just distracted me from sitting with some stuff that I needed to sit with. And then then COVID hit after that. And I got really more insular. And then since then, it's like I went back and got my MFA, but I was just studying and in the work. So now I'm just like, okay, been out of the game for a very long time. Do not remember how to do any of this. Like, I'm intentionally trying to flirt, and I really don't know how, but I'm I've just it's just funny to be intentionally just practicing here at Esalen with people that I know are safe,
Yeah.
So that's basically why I'm this is a little scary for me. But yeah, I think it's
really
good
cool.
practice. Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this. That it takes bravery. I think it takes bravery to flirt in general, but it takes extra bravery to flirt on mic for a podcast. So that's really amazing you're doing this.
Yeah. Just throwing myself in the mix.
Yeah. Would you enjoy a compliment?
Yes.
I really like the color of your hair.
Thank you.
One piece of advice would also be another would you enjoy a second compliment?
Yeah.
I think for you, I imagine if you just be around other people, I think people are going to want to talk to you. And I would imagine, if anything, you'll have to get a stick to fight people off from asking you out on dates all the time.
Okay. Do you mean that?
No, I really mean that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was out of the mix for a long time. And then when I first got to Esalen, I'm a little older than the people that I came in with the REAP.
Yeah.
And I saw them kind of getting crushes on each other, and I felt like this old hag.
Aww.
And I just felt like I just was I think I was putting that out there, energetically too, and just kind of wah. And now I feel like I've shaken that off a little bit.
It's great.
And so my energy feels freer.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think smiling is kind of
Okay.
a simple thing, but we often underestimate how important it is. Because smiling says to this other person, hey, I'm a friendly person. I'm enjoying seeing you or our interaction.
Okay.
So smiling is a nice kind of start to an interaction. I think people really tend to underuse playfulness and humor, but even just the slightest bit of humor or playfulness can kind of say to someone yeah, this can be a fun interaction. This doesn't have to be all business or all serious. We can kind of flow with each other.
Yeah. I'm trying to think too, how I feel like I can be oblivious to when someone's kind of interested in me like that. And my coworkers, my coworker, one in particular, Weston, he'll be that, I think he was kind of into you. And I'm what? And I have no radar for that.
Yeah.
Do you have any ways that I might pick up on that?
Yeah. Well, here's the nice thing. I think one of the cool things about the time we're living in, but also the place of Esalen, if not many other places on the planet. As a guy, I've really liked when a woman has shown interest in me and has asked for my phone number, asked me out on a date. So if you found someone hot and you wanted to be hey, I'm thinking maybe you're a little into me. Would you want to go get coffee sometime? Or would you want to give me your number? Or something like that. The absolute worst case scenario is the person's like, no. Or actually, I'm in a relationship, I can't, or I'm not into women, or I just got out of something, I'm not really available right now. That's the worst. But I bet for you, quite often, they'd be like, yeah, here's my number. You were right. I am kind of into you, and you might be kind of into me. Let's go get a coffee or something.
Yeah. I feel like here, too, it's like there's low stakes. Like, it could be like, oh, you want to sit down for a cup of tea? Like, so you don't have to plan as much or, orchestrate this whole thing. It's just, yeah.
And I think for people who are listening who don't live at Esalen, I think the stakes are generally low out in the planet. If you're listening to this in Saudi Arabia, if you're listening to this in Iran, and you might get beheaded if you flirt with the wrong person, ignore everything we're saying this hour. But if you're living in most places in the world, flirting is okay. Flirting is kind of fun, particularly... For me, I don't touch people without their consent. So that's kind of a line that I don't cross, and that makes things safer for everybody. I'm less likely to be beheaded. More importantly, they're much less likely to feel violated. So if you're flirting verbally and with your eyes and things like that, you said something really important right when you walked in, which was like, I like to flirt with people where it's safe. It might actually be safer than you would imagine, even if you broadened your flirt zone. Because I think the worst case scenario, most likely, is you'll have a lot of people into you, and then you'll just have to kind of respectfully or nicely let them know you're not super interested. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very unlikely if you were to be flirtatious, it would be ill-received or people would be upset. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm absorbing that right now. I'm like, I think that first of all, what you were saying before, it's like putting myself out there, like being direct. Even coming on the podcast right now, it's like, that's a step that like, oh, I didn't want, when I was walking up here, I was like, what am I doing? I was like, I do not want to be doing this. And it's like, I feel like leaning into that more, like, because everything in my being is like the fear of rejection, the fear of like being too much, or like, oh, I misread something, keeps me from, like, I just do not do it. So, I think also, like, I guess because I haven't been flirting, it's just like I put this energy on the interactions, like, well, what if they think that then I'm like want to marry them, like, not that far, but like I'm really serious about something, and it's like, no, people just flirt, and that's it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you have to go on a date. It doesn't mean that you have to start dating, it's like so I put too much on it. And I think just breaking the ice, like just practicing, and then knowing that, there's just so many opportunities. Yeah, I just think doing it more
100%
is probably
And at least from our very extensive relationship together, which is at least 7 minutes now, you don't seem even close to too much. Like, I can imagine you being even much more expressive and free, and like not even being close to too much.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
That hits on some deeper stuff too. Yeah.
And like you said, there's no obligation, right? Like, let's say, for example, you were like working at the bookstore and you were being kind of flirty, and someone was like, hey, I'm really feeling the vibe with you. Do you want to go get dinner? And you were like, oh, no thanks. Or, oh, I'm not really, interested in you in that way, but I'm so honored you asked.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
doesn't
okay.
have
They'll
to
get
be
over
heavy.
it.
It doesn't have to have all this weight.
It doesn't have to have all this weight.
Yeah.
In some ways, we were talking about this with Wuya. You're kind of helping them learn how to accept rejection gracefully.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If they misinterpret and think there's something sexual, it's not the end of the world. That's totally fine.
But how do you keep it light? I mean, for those of us who feel like interactions like that are definitely heavy, how is it, and I asked you this before, but how is it that you can keep it kind of like light and positive even in the face of someone potentially getting their feelings hurt?
Well, I think so much of it is in the wording and the energy, but you can still make it a positive thing. Like, I'll be consensual about it. Would you be interested in asking me out, and then I will try to model how to like gracefully reject you and keep it kind of fun.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know. Okay. I don't even know how. Oh my God. Okay. I don't even know how to practice this. Okay. I think you're... Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I think you're really cute, and I'd love to grab a coffee with you sometime.
Oh, wow. I'm noticing my heart's beating faster than usual right now. I'm kind of blushing a little bit. I am so flattered that you think I'm cute. I'm actually in a relationship, and my girlfriend would be kind of jealous if I were to say yes. But I'm so excited that you think I'm cute and like really honored that you asked me out. I bet there's lots of guys who would be so stoked to go on a date with you. What have you thought about the other guys here? How has it been for you so far? And then I might kind of shift direction a little bit.
Wow. That actually like it made me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in practice. Wow.
You want to practice it?
Okay.
So Liz, I notice I'm really enjoying interacting with you, and I think it'd be fun to keep that going. Would you want to give me your phone number and maybe go on a date sometime?
Wow, it's been so fun to talk to you, and it's really lit my day up. But I'm not available for that right now, for dating. But thank you.
No problem. Thanks for taking care of yourself. How has it been so far being at Esalen? And then I might kind of just take it in a different direction.
Okay.
How was that for you?
I think in practice, it was okay. In the moment, I could see myself getting very nervous, but I could do it.
You did great.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel upset. I didn't feel mad. Maybe there was a little disappointment.
Okay.
But that's okay. That's okay to get disappointed. Like, that can happen in life.
Yeah. I didn't want to make up a non-existing boyfriend.
Yeah, I love that.
I kept it true.
No, I'm into honesty. I actually think we should not tell lies. So I love how you did it. That was
Okay.
great.
All right.
What do you think? Would you want to take any of this into the world and practice being more open?
I do feel inspired. I feel inspired to be, I think my work right now too is just to like be fearless and just putting myself out there in all the ways.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been very self-contained. Part of that healing space was very necessary, and part of it just like built these kind of walls around, and I've been breaking through those walls just slowly with community, with friendship, with all of the things, not just with flirting or the opposite, it has to be the opposite sex, but that's personally, but I've just been slowly kind of breaking down the walls, but then I realized like, oh wow, there's still some just containment beyond just like the walls with other, like it's just me holding in my like fire a little bit. I feel really inspired to be direct.
Yeah.
And just to have fun with it.
Direct is fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on this. It's all about being skillfully vulnerable. So if you've just met a new person 3 minutes ago, you don't go straight up to the top. That's not the time to tell them your deepest, darkest secret, your most horrible trauma, the time you were sexually assaulted, your favorite sexual position, the thing you feel the most ashamed about. If that's a 10, that's not the thing to do if you've just met someone 3 minutes ago. That's not being skillfully vulnerable. That's just being very vulnerable.
I wish you had taught me this like 25 years ago. Go ahead, Jake.
So Brene Brown talks about this thing called a shame hangover. So I know I've experienced this. I don't know if any of you listeners have experienced this. Yeah. It's where you go too high on the ladder too quickly, and then later you're like, oh my gosh, why did I share that? That was too fast. I wish I hadn't done that. So that's an error to jump straight to the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
But the biggest error that people make is they don't take a single step on the ladder.
Yeah.
They keep it really superficial and really light.
Right.
And then they wonder why they don't feel much more close or connected to the other person.
Right.
But if you're willing to be brave and take a small step on the ladder, then you can see how the other person responds and you can gather data. So for example, I'll use a real example. You and I met mostly today. I think we'd met very briefly before today, but we mostly met today. And I thought your hat was super cool. And I think I said something like, oh, I love your hat. That was a little vulnerable to give you a compliment, because you could have said something like, oh, this is my worst hat. You have terrible taste if you like this hat. Then I might have thought, okay, I don't want to go further on the ladder with Sam. Sam is judgmental, or Sam is cruel. I'm not going to take another risk. But you didn't do that. You responded in a way that was warm, that was, appreciative. And it's possible that you could have, or you did, say something that would also be vulnerable. Maybe you would give me a compliment, or maybe you would say something like, oh, yeah, here's the story of how I got this hat. Or I wore this hat on a trip with my wife and we had this thing and blah, 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 right? You could have told me something. So let's say you match me on the ladder. Then either in that encounter or another encounter, I could take another risk. I could go a little higher. So I might say something like, I'm excited to be on the podcast, or I'm a little nervous to be on the podcast, or I didn't sleep well last night because I was thinking about being on the podcast, right? I'm taking a risk. And again, you might judge me, or you might say something that makes me decide not to go further, or you might kind of match me or go higher. And what I like about this model is we're often under the illusion that we have to wait a really long time to feel close to someone. Sometimes we think, oh, I have to wait years to become good friends with this person. It doesn't have to be that. It can be much faster. So an example I've used before, which I'll use again, one of my best friends in the world, Ian, we met in 2016. Right after I published my book, I gave myself a camping trip as a reward. And I intended to get to this campsite early and failed to do that. I got there pretty late. It was dark. And my dad had given me this huge, 8-person tent that's massive to set up and really hard with one person. So I went to this guy who was sitting in the lodge and said, hey, it's kind of dark. Is there any chance you could help me set up this unwieldy tent? And he was like, yeah, sure. And we started talking, and I think I took a risk or he took a risk. We started sharing a little bit about our lives, and then we started sharing more and more. And then we ended up talking for 2 or 3 hours. And by the end of that time, I knew him a great deal about him, probably even things some of his friends didn't know, and he knew a lot about me, and we felt very close and connected. And he's still one of my best friends 9 years later. We've traveled to Bali together, we've surfed together, we've had many lunches and dinners together. He's just this amazing guy, and I could have waited years to develop that closeness and connection with him, but we were both willing to take risks and develop this closeness. And I would wish that for people. I would wish for people to have the opportunity to get close with people instead of waiting years.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who's curious but a little terrified to take your workshop at Esalen in September?
That's probably a lot of people. I would say notice that nervousness, and you can validate it. See, yeah, it makes sense. This is a technique we call positive reframing in Team CBT. You could ask yourself, what are the advantages of being nervous, and what are the wonderful and beautiful things it shows about you that you're nervous? So you, the listener, might think, well, this shows that I care about myself, that I want to protect myself, that I don't want to do anything that's too risky where I'm actually in danger. Or this shows that I'm aware that I probably will feel uncomfortable at times if I do this workshop. Advantages of feeling nervous, it might motivate you to stay home and not go to the workshop and be really safe, right? Not take that risk. And you might also decide, well, yeah, it says a lot of great things about me that I'm feeling nervous. It has advantages, but I'm not having the kinds of deep connections with people that I would like to, or I'm not dating as much as I want to, or I'm not feeling as connected to other people. So I'll take the risk. So come to Esalen, you could try it out. And I expect when people come to this, they're going to feel nervous. So it's the workshop is designed in a way where we ease people in. And we know that for a lot of people, even just showing up is super hard. So we're gonna have some tenderness with that, and we don't want to overwhelm people. We want it to be fun, we want it to be challenging, but also doable and not overwhelming.
What's something that you're really loving or appreciating about yourself these days?
Well, okay, I'll take a risk with you, Sam. I didn't know if this would come up or not, but I'm feeling like inclined to share it. So, my dad just died out of the blue 17 days ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jacob.
Thank you. And I was like, should I even do the podcast? Like, the podcast is going to be kind of light and fun, and we're going to focus on flirting. But I was like, no, I still want to do it. Like, I want to go spend time with Sam. I want to do the podcast. And I've been nervous to really sit in the sadness because it's been easier to keep myself busy, seeing patients and helping out with the celebration of life. And I'm still not perfect at it, but I've been recently just kind of pushing myself to be in the sadness. So like last night, I was in the lodge and I brought all these pictures of my dad and some writings that he'd done. And I was looking at the pictures and I was reading his writings and I was just sitting there sobbing. Probably people thought I was totally crazy or weird, which I am weird. But it was uncomfortable and it was difficult, but I was like, I can do this. And this is kind of what I need to do. I need to just let myself be with the sadness, even though it's very unpleasant and I don't want to. And then last night I went back to my room and he had this scrapbook that his mom made for him from age 0 to 5. And it had like the little candle. On his first birthday, it had the candle, and apparently he tried to eat the candle after he blew out the candle. And like the wax was right there. And they even wrote down like who came to his little birthday parties, like his 3rd birthday party, and what they brought and the presents. And there was like this cute little picture of him when he was 2 months old. So I just went through the scrapbook and cried, and I didn't know if I'd be able to do it because it's really tempting to just avoid it. Sometimes I'm good at avoidance, but I've at least to some degree kind of just made myself sit in the sadness and let myself sit in the sadness, and that's been, I think, overall a good thing.
What was your dad's name?
Obi. Owen Booker Towery III, but everybody called him Obi.
Mm-hmm. No, may his memory be a blessing.
Thank you.
Jacob Towery, this has been wonderful, educational, productive, useful. It's been fun, and I really liked connecting with you.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, I found it an unusual mixture of like fun, heavy, light, playful, connecting. You're really good at this and made it easy, and I think this is one of the most enjoyable podcasts I've ever done. So thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Esalen. Today's show was produced in conjunction with Cher Levine. Our theme music is by Nico Holloman. So go forth, flirt bravely, and may your shame dissolve in good company.